Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dill, we saw Josh Heupel, this Tennessee Vols program, go to Charlotte, North Carolina, and for lack of better terms, just put on an offensive clinic against an NC State team that we both think is a pretty damn good team in the 2024 season. I think what's so special about what we saw from Tennessee, it wasn't all that complicated. There was just a lot of basic concepts that, Dill, you were fired up to get into. This is an episode that's right up your alley. It's basic, but it works. But it kind of shows you why this Tennessee team can be so special in 2024. Dill, I'm going to let you cook right here. Before we get into the film, overarching takes on what we saw from this Vols offense Saturday night at in Charlotte against NC State.
I think you said it perfectly. And if every team could run it the way they're running it and just run power up and down the field, it tickles my soul as a former high school offensive lineman. You would dream of that ability to just run that play consistently, move guys when you want to move them. And again, this isn't against like some peewee football team, I would say, that Tennessee was playing. They're playing a really good, really physical NC State team that's kind of been the bully of the ACC for a while. And for them to just march up and down the field, really not doing a whole lot of creative, if you will. It's just base power scheme, running the ball, really good performance out of Dylan Sampson and Nico Iamaleava, for that matter, running the football. If every coach could run that style offense, they would. There's just not many offensive lines can do it the way.
Yeah, but we hopped on Sunday morning and talked about it. And we said our biggest takeaway from the Tennessee performance was not what you saw on the scoreboard, was not Nico's stat line. It was specifically what you saw from this Tennessee program in the trenches against an NC State team that you could largely call them the bullies of the ACC. Like, they're not going to have the most skill on the outside, although they do this year. But normally they're not going to have a ton of skill on the outside, but they're going to physically impose their will in the ACC. They've won a lot of football games over the last decade doing so. Tennessee bullied the bully. You take a look at the numbers: 250 rushing yards to 39. Tennessee put on a clinic, and I'm going to let you kind of lead the way on the film here. But Dill, I ain't even an offensive line guy. You're more that kind of guy, but I know what I'm looking at here. You're going to see base power. They ran this play probably 20 to 25 times on Saturday night, and it pretty much worked every time, right? And I think one of the bigger storylines, you talk about underrated transfer portal additions, big Lance Hurd at the left tackle spot. You ask Lance Hurd to get on his down block, he's going to move bodies. And then you talk about a 6'3", 330-pound offensive guard kicking out or pulling out to the play side. It's just so much physicality that this Tennessee team's throwing on you. This is a clinic, and they'll shout out the tight ends, getting it done downfield blocking as well. Big 87 leading the way. When you can run it like that, you don't need to throw much eye candy. NC State, I think, knew what they were running, and they just couldn't stop it.
And they're not giving up any run through. They're all getting into their gaps. They're moving the guys they're supposed to move. That's just like almost a perfect definition of how you want to run that play. And it's really, really hard to stop it when you can do it that way. Just from a physical standpoint, it's hard to be able to be that perfect, if you will, as that offensive line. I just think you're really impressed. And frankly, they do it from both sides. I think their right side doesn't really take much of a backseat. You see John Campbell, you see Spraggins on that side. They can move guys. Obviously, Lance Hurd can move guys. And then, frankly, their tight ends, they block really effectively, both in line. They pull effectively. It's just a really well-oiled machine, or at least that performance against NC State. I think you're licking your chops if you're an NC or Tennessee fan to think, well, we beat up an NC State team and we didn't even really unleash our bag of tricks on them. I do think Heupel can call a really creative game if he has to, and I don't think it looks this way against Georgia or Alabama when Tennessee goes and plays those teams. But I do think at the end of the day, they can rely on that scheme and then hit some stuff off it and be a really tough offense.
Well, I think that's kind of the definition of what makes Tennessee's offense work so well is, for the offense, it's basic. They're working a lot of plays off that power look, but at a defense, you're looking at it and say the multitude of different plays they can hit you with, and we're going to get into a couple of variations from that play that they used. It's really complex. But for Tennessee,
you saw how aggressive NC State had to start playing to stop that. When you were playing linebacker against that front, you had to be screaming into those gaps because you saw how how effectively Tennessee was moving guys and how quickly you kind of needed to flow over the top of blocks to have any chance of beating it. And then you did see them obviously get some stuff later. And Nico Iamaleava, I think, adds a new wrinkle into this rushing attack too. You see this play that they're about to run. I mean, they run the running back power obviously with Sampson. He's dynamic as they get. But Nico can run the ball really effectively too, and not just as a scrambler. I mean, good instincts, gets into the holes quickly, and does a really good job being a pure runner rather than just like a playmaker with that athleticism.
I mean, if you like freeze frame it here, and again, very similar, and they love to run power to the left because they love Lancer getting on that down block. Then you get 6'3", 330-pound Spragans pulling to the play side. That's how you want it to look if you're Tennessee. And it's just a numbers game. Like Nico's looking at the sideline. We're counting numbers in the box. We say, hey, we're going to leave this backside defender unblocked. He's not going to be fast enough to get Nico from the backside. Hat on a hat. Lance Hurd, I mean, you look at the washdown. Like Lance Hurd is just so physically imposing, and we obviously know what Nico can do when he's in open space. Still, you said it best. Nico, he's probably not a guy you want taking 15 hits a game, but he is a very natural ball carrier, and he's obviously a very good athlete as well.
And it allows them to run that out of a different formation. You see them go four wide, be really out there in a spread and run it from that system. I just think, again, being able to run this play out of various looks, just again, simple power, but they're running it from different looks, and they were hitting big plays off it, not only because Nico's really good, but also you saw Dylan Sampson make some plays when he had his shots one-on-one versus safeties in that game, which is essentially what I think most power schemes are designed to get you. He was able to take advantage of that and hit explosiveness off it. So they're not just a ground and pound team like a Michigan, let's say. They have maybe a little more extra juice to hit big plays off of that kind of.
Hey, I'll say this, and you might not know this, but being the recruiting nerd, having broken down Dylan Sampson when he committed to Tennessee, the kid's a 10.5 in the 100-meter dash. When you talk about juice at the second level, this kid absolutely burns. You saw that against NC State. I don't know if you saw like the full burners yet of Dylan Sampson, but I think all Tennessee fans know what he can do when he does get a lot of space at the second level. Now, I think the fascinating, and this is where I think this Tennessee offense really does get, I wouldn't say unstoppable, but as close as you can get, is they run so much off of that power look. You take a look, I mean, they've been running power pretty much all game. Now we're early third quarter. NC State has seen power just getting smashed down their throat for 2.5 quarters.
These linebackers, when you roll this clip, I mean, look at how they essentially have to play this, because if they don't play it that way, they're cooked. So you see them.
They're already cooked, right? Because, I mean, we're even pulling our guard around. Like, we're giving all the cues that we're throwing power at you, right? It's a 2nd and 6 play. It's a running down play. Linebackers are queuing in on the run game because they've gotten smashed the whole game. We're just going to leak the tight end out, pitch and catch. And so, like, there's so many different ways that Tennessee can have success based off that simple concept. And to the defense, it might look a little complex. But if you're Josh Heupel in Tennessee, and I think I remember Josh Heupel's celebration when they hit this play, he was like, we knew that's coming. Like, when you can run the football the way they did all game, you know you're going to get one of these plays where everyone's sucked in, you leak the tight end out, it's a pitch and catch from Nico. And then finally, there's a multitude of different ways they can go, right? Another really kind of basic power look. We're not going to pull the guard here, but we're just going to leak Squirrel right out. If you can get Squirrel White out in space, you're cooked. Like, this kid is the fastest player on the field. So it's so many different ways that they can attack a team based off that power concept. Look, whether they're running the football with Dylan Sampson, whether they're using Nico as a ball carrier, whether they're going play action, heavy play action, and pushing the ball down the field. Dill, if Tennessee can run this kind of smash mouth power against a lot of teams in the SEC, and I'll say this, if you can do it against NC State, I think you can do it against a lot of SEC teams, and maybe not as much against when you get Georgia and Alabama. But if you can have some sort of success doing it, like, Josh Heupel's going to cook off of that concept.
And again, that's where it'll obviously become a bit of a battle. I mean, it won't look this easy against everyone.
Yes.
Given where Tennessee's at, they're kind of competing for a national title this year.
100%.
So for an SEC title, I would put them in that. I think, what did we have them? Number 5, number 6?
We had them at the top of the tier below that kind of elite top 3 tier.
And that's where they belong. And I think, again, that power play that they're going to run, I think that travels. I don't think that's ever going to be a point where they just can't go to that and chew up yards. Will it be as explosive against other teams? Probably not. But that's, again, where Nico gives you something. You have a stable of wide receivers that you didn't even really need to go to a whole lot against NC State. So I think this offense can be a lot more. I think they can base a lot of stuff off that very basic power kind of scheme that they're running. But I think, again, there's a lot more to this offense that you can go to off of that. And that's what I'm kind of looking forward to when they really start getting tested. What does this offense kind of develop into from what it is?
Well,
now?
that's what's special about it, because like I don't think there's a lot of teams that can light box Tennessee and stop the run. Like you are going to have to put a safety into the box, and if you want to do that, you have Nico at quarterback. You got Brazel, Dante Thornton, Brew McCoy, all guys that can work vertically down the field. If your defense, it's kind of that choose your poison. You want to put another body in the box, you're going to be given a one-on-one matchup look to some of those long, big, fast wide receivers to work vertically. If you want to stay back in that too high safety look, like have fun, because Tennessee's just going to run 25 times right down your throat. This Tennessee team, I mean, you were always higher on Tennessee than I was. I am, especially because you all know NC State was my darling coming into 20, and we picked this game 3 months ago, and I said I like NC State to cover the spread. Obviously, that was very much wrong. I am all aboard the Vols heading into 2020, the rest of 2024. I can't wait to see what this team looks like as they get into the thick of the SEC schedule, because I think Josh Heupel is ready in terms of the line of scrimmage play. What's the biggest difference between this 2024 team and what we saw in 2022? Yes, Tennessee had the number one offense in the country in 2022, but they weren't quite there along the lines of scrimmage. I think they're there not only on offense, but on defense as well. You held NC State to a $143 of total offense in 4 quarters of a football game. That's some high school JV type stuff. All aboard the Tennessee train. The boys are fired up. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.